The purpose of today's lesson is we are you've learned how to graph and identify slope and y-intercept. Well, now you're learning how to identify and interpret out of the word problem. So the purpose of today is to really learn how to identify and then interpret. So we have, can somebody read number 2? Please read number 2. Go, David. T. So before you get started on any of these, you should always define. T stands for what? Toppings. And that's like our X. And what is my F of T? What does it represent? Ayla? The cost for the Sunday. The total.
Total cost.
Yeah, total cost. Okay, so then it says, what is the y-intercept and what does it mean? Sometimes they say, what is it and what does it mean? Sometimes they say, find the y-intercept and interpret. Interpret, the definition of interpret is, what does it mean? Explain it. So just identify. Step 1, I want 2 sentences. Identify the y-intercept. Eitan.
The y-intercept should be
is
$2.20
is 2.25. Okay. Now, I want a sentence. This means. Explain it. Bryce?
This means that the graph will start at 2.
This, you're too much. This means.
That the linear function.
What does it represent in this story? Are you talking too much about the y-intercept in an actual graphing situation and less about the story? And I want the story. Because this is really, you know what? This is a better way to look at it. What is the ordered pair? You could say 2.25, or in a y-intercept, what is your x? 0, 225. This means, what does the 0 represent? What does the 225 represent?
0 represents the x.
What is your x up here? And what is your...
the toppings and cost.
So this means for what? Go, Matthew. 0 toppings. The Sunday will cost $2.25, and then you put your dollar sign, because up here, in the first part, we're just identifying it. We're not putting any story. In the second part, we take it to the story. We identify, we explain. When they say interpret, identify and interpret, you list what the y-intercept is, and if you can put it into an ordered pair, you explain what the 0 and the y-intercept are. Now, the next part. What is the slope and what does it mean? What is this? Identify and interpret the slope. Okay, Annabella.
The slope is 75 cents.
No units. 0.75. This means, turn that into a fraction. What fraction is that? Or 0. In this case, you can use the decimal, right? Just put it over 1. This means what?
For every one topping you get, it costs 75 cents.
Okay, for each topping.
It adds 25 cents.
Right, yeah. So for means for each topping added, it costs 0.75, and I'm using my cents, 75 cents. Costs additional, I guess. Just have to make it make sense in a complete sentence. Yes, David.
Will we from now on do linear equations with functions, or will we
It'll get mixed. But right now we're really kind of just looking at them. We learn linear equations, then we learn function equations with as in functions and writing function notation, and now looking at word problems. Okay, now if K pays $6 for a sundae, okay, how many toppings were on K's sundae? What am I doing with that, Cameron?
Okay, so you want to write the first equation, the normal one.
The f of t equals 225, the cost of the sundae, plus what? 0 and 75 hundredths t.
And then you write $6 equals 2.25 plus 0.25 t.
Yep, 2.25 plus 0.75 t. And what's the goal here?
And then you subtract the 2.25.
Subtract 225.
And then divide by 0.75.
And then we have our remainders for, it's 375 equals 0 and 75 hundredths t. Divide by 75 hundredths. You could have cleared it. If you have a calculator, t equals 5. Now, what does that mean?
That means that you bought 5.
For $6. For $6, what?
You can get a sundae with 5 toppings.
You can get 5 toppings.
It's like cold stone.
Okay, question? Okay. Now, okay, that is the second part of the homework, page 141. They're going to use the terminology in the word problems. They're going to say, this is 3-5. They are going to say, like, find and interpret. Graph the function and identify the domain and range. Interpret the slope and the c-intercept of the graph. Well, depends on what the variable they're using. The y-intercept. In this case, that was the c of x. So they're just asking you to identify and interpret. Identify and interpret both of them. Does that make sense? Yes or no? Interpret means, okay, so I have 13, 14. 13 and 14. Find and interpret the slope of the line. Find and interpret the slope of the line. That's 13 and 14. And then we have 37 and 38. Graph the function and identify its domain and range. And then interpret the slope and the c-intercept of the graph. In this particular case. Any questions there? Okay. I've got one more. I want to do one more with you. Let's go to 3. I'm going to do one of your homework problems, and you're going to do 24. I'm going to do 24. You're going to do, and write it with me. Okay? This counts as your homework, so you should be writing this down. Okay, in this one, you'll do a little graph, but you don't have to, Okay, so here's 24. Can somebody in the front please read this? Go, Cameron.
You are ordering shirts for the math club at your school. Short sleeve shirts cost $10 each. Long sleeve shirts cost $12 each. You have a budget of $300 for the shirts.
Okay, clear.
You have a budget of $300 for the shirts. The equation 10x plus 12y equals 300 models the cost. Models. What?
Total cost.
Oh. What?
The total cost, where X is the number of short sleeve shirts and Y is the number of long sleeve shirts. So, step 1, I want you to identify your unknowns. Tell me what X represents, tell me what Y represents. You've got the equation right here. Notice 10 is with it. They explain to you what's $10. So what is X? Cameron?
The slope short sleeve shirts.
Okay, we're going to say that's your short sleeve shirts. And what is your Y? Somebody else. Go, David. The long sleeve. Okay. Now, when I make my graph here, since I'm buying shirts, right, I do not have to, I don't really have to do all four quadrants because I'm never going to get the negative. Okay? So, I'm going to make my... Okay? So, we said X represents what?
Short sleeve shirts.
These are short, and this is long. Now, since this equation is in standard form, the easiest way to deal with standard form is to graph using intercepts. Okay? To graph using intercepts means use your zeros. So, I can do, you want to do the x-intercept first or the y? Okay, for the y-intercept, what do I set equal to 0?
X.
Right, so I'm doing 10 times 0 plus 12y equals 300. I end up with 12y equals 300. Divide by 12, divide by 12. Y is equal to 25. Now, what is that ordered pair? 0, 25. I'm going to plot that point. 0 across. Let's go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. Okay? Okay, so that's 25. I'm going to plot that point. Okay? The next one I'm going to set y equal to 0. This is my x-intercept. Okay? So I'm doing 10x plus 12 times 0 equals 300. Okay? So now I've got 10x equals 300. And now I've got x equals 30. What's the ordered pair?
30.
Okay, so I'm plotting that point. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. We're finishing this. 30. I'm plotting that. Now, I'm almost done, guys. Please do not stop. Let me finish this. Okay, so you don't need to go beyond because there's no negative, right? What do each of those represent? This 0, 25, because they said interpret the intercepts. So what does that mean? What happens? 0 what? 0 what?
Long sleeve and short sleeve.
0 what? Here.
Zero short sleeves.
Okay, I hear multiple. Raise a hand. Go, Carter.
Zero short sleeves.
Right, 0 across, 0 short sleeves. This means to interpret is for 0 short sleeves, I can, I can buy 25 long. And what does the other one represent? 30, 0. Okay, what does the other one represent, David? Okay, you're right. Well, okay, let's keep going. So what does this mean?
It means that the maximum amount of long sleeve you can buy is 25 maximum short sleeve.
I'm asking what is this point right here?
At that point,
We've already done that one.
30 short sleeves and no long sleeves.
Okay, do you understand? That's interpreting it, and he is right. If I made a table of this and I found more, we can't buy part of a shirt. But just for the purpose of this, they only want they want only our x-intercept and our y-intercept. They want you to interpret it, say what it means. Look at part B. It says 12 students decide that they want short-sleeved shirts. So now what am I going to do with that part? 12 students decide they want how many? Part B. 12 students decide they want short-sleeved shirts. 10x plus 12y equals 300. What am I doing with that?
Short sleeve, no.
Substituting 10 x with 12.
What?
You substitute x with 12.
Good. So I'm doing 10 times 12 plus 12y equals 300. That becomes 120 plus 12y equals 300. Subtract the 120, subtract the 120. I wish I had more space here. And then I have 12y equals 180. Divide by 12, and we get y equals what? I think it's 15.
Yeah, 15.
So that means if 12 people buy short sleeve, for 12 short sleeve, then 15 get long. Do you understand what it means to interpret? Okay, that's the lesson.